G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today we're here to talk about cards. I have been using these CF Express cards from Pergear for 2 or 3 years now. And as you can see, they do them in a whole range of sizes. Now, in that time, I've been using all of these cards on a daily basis, and all of them have been performing absolutely perfectly in all of that time. There's absolutely nothing negative I can say about these cards. Beyond these cards, Pergear have also released an updated range of cards that run even faster. So in the CF Express Type B space, Pergear have got you covered. They also do things like lenses and other photography and video equipment and accessories. But today, Pergear are releasing something new. It is indeed another type of CF Express card. It's not CF Express Type B, it's not CF Express Type C. It is Type A. Now that's pretty exciting. If you are a Sony user in some of their more recent and high-end cameras, those cameras have both an SD slot as well as a CF Express Type A slot. And what this allows for is for Sony high-end users to use both the extremely popular and extremely widely produced and widely available SD cards. You can pretty much buy them anywhere. You can buy them in corner stores, supermarkets, and office suppliers. So you can use SD cards. You can also use this much faster format, CF Express Type A. The way technology is always changing, you never know whether Type A will catch up with Type B. And really the only fundamental difference is those cards are physically different sizes. Let's take a look at the Pergear CF Express Type A. This particular model is the 260 gigabyte edition. They're very similar in size to SD cards. This is actually the first time I have ever held a CF Express Type A. And my first reaction to it is they are a little bit thicker than SD cards, but they seem to be a little bit narrower than SD cards. But let's have a look at them versus CF Express Type B. Now, can I get them to stand up? Yes, I can. We can see here that there's quite a difference in size between these cards, so who knows what the long-term outcome will be with either of these formats. There is always a time where physics becomes involved. I think the most exciting thing about Pergear coming out with these cards is the fact that this will bring the price down. In the beginning of Type A, Sony were the only manufacturer of cards, and in the past they have been terrifically expensive. We're now starting to see a few more third-party players, with Pergear coming into the market and bringing us a great price point for this format versus previous pricing. It's still not as good as CF Express Type B per gigabyte. Like with CF Express and XQD before it, these were expensive formats that over time became more and more less expensive. The one thing to keep in mind with CF Express Type A is right now, to the best of my understanding, Sony are the only company to use this card. So I suppose what that ultimately means is it will take longer for prices to come down because there are less manufacturers, there are less cameras using this format. CF Express Type B is used by Fuji, Canon, I think Panasonic, and Nikon, and there may be some others. So it is very widely adopted at this point in time. But here it is, CF Express Type A from a third-party manufacturer, a manufacturer who I've been using for quite a number of years, and I am very happy with the quality and performance of their cards. Okay, let's take a look at the CF Express Type A in a high-end Sony, and today we've got the Sony A7R5. Now, of course, it does have that really interesting slot configuration, which really, it's hard to see from here. The top and the bottom slot can both take CF Express Type A or SD because we can see the sizes are so similar. and all you do is change the side that the pinning is. Anyway, let me mount this CF Express Type A card in the Sony for the very first time. I believe it's something like this. Yeah. And there it is. Yeah, so that's quite intriguing, and we can put the SD card with the pins facing the other way in the other slot. So there we go. CF Express Type A here, high-end SD card here, and you kind of have these universal ports. I do think this is a great innovation from Sony, having the one port that can take two different types of cards. Obviously, they can't do it at the same time, so I cannot stress that enough. This camera cannot take 4 cards at once, okay? But it can take either 2 CF Express Type A, 2 SDs, or it can take one of each at the same time. It does make it pretty universal. The Sony a7R5 is not a speed demon camera. This is a high resolution 61 megapixel camera. So perhaps the only thing that would challenge this camera is the 8K video. But even the 8K video, I don't think there is internal RAW in this camera. But as this is a high-end camera, and perhaps there'll be future firmware updates that do stress this camera more, it would appear that Sony has put that slot in it. But I'm not sure if there's anything in this camera that does not work with high-end SD cards. And here we can see in real time, using the Blackmagic Disk speed test, what an SD UHS-2 card will do. Now this card is rated a little bit higher than we're actually getting here for write speed, but it's been pretty normal in the industry that the speed that cards are rated at, often in real world testing, they don't get to those speeds. It's usually somewhere within a 10 to 20% range if the card is actually a good card. So we can see here we're getting 231 megabytes of write and almost 250 megabytes of read speed. It's not bad for an SD card, technology that's been around forever. Now, Type A, we have a read here of 430 megabytes per second, a little bit above that. And when it comes to read, well, this thing absolutely shines, and we can see it gets almost up to 700 megabytes per second read. Now that's absolutely fantastic. What we're using here is a 5 gigabyte file in both instances. And I really think we can see the advantages of the Type A card here versus SD cards. Now, mine's not the absolute fastest, but it's very, very close to the fastest SD UHS-2 that you can get. Pergy have released the 80 gigabyte version of this Type A card for $99 US. And I think that's pretty awesome if you want to get into these high-speed cards. There's the 260 gigabyte version that I have here today, which is $189 US. And as of the time of recording, if we jump online to one of the big USA retailers, we can see that UHS-2 SD cards are actually more expensive at the same size. And this is at the time of recording. And the 520 gigabyte version, the largest version at the moment for Pergear, is $359 US. Now for CF Express Type A, this is great pricing. You can pay a bit extra when you buy your card, and you can get Pergear's CF Express Type A card reader, which also doubles as an SD card reader. Here's the card reader here. On the front here, it is an SD card reader, and on the side, it is a CF Express Type A. And they also ship it with USB-C and USB Type A. So this really is designed for the user on the road. They're using SD and Type A and whatever computer. And if you purchase this at the same time as getting the 260 gigabyte card, for example, it is only an extra $30 US. Up to you. You might already have a reader, but I think that's pretty affordable for a card reader, $30 US. And if you are interested in purchasing the Pergear Type A card, Pergear has given me a 10% discount to offer to viewers of this channel. Use the coupon code and you get a further 10% off. Pergear is stating with this card that the maximum read speed is 880 megabytes and that the maximum write speed is 900 megabytes, with an absolute minimum that it'll get down to of 400 megabytes per second. The current cameras that these cards are compatible with is the Sony a7R4, the Sony a7S III, the Sony a1, the Sony a7R5, the FX3 and the FX6. Pergear offer a 5-year warranty with these cards, and they state that they can handle up to 4K 120 or 8K 30 frames per second. And just of note, the 80GB card runs a little slower with a write speed of 600 megabytes per second as opposed to the 900 megabytes per second for the top two cards. And when it comes to read speed, the 80GB card maxes out at 800 megabytes as opposed to the 880 megabytes for the largest two cards. And to give you an idea of what Sony are currently charging for a card, their 80GB card, which is known as their tough cards, are twice the price at $198 US. The closest other size that I can find to the Pergear is a Lexar 320GB card, which is $479 US. I'll leave it up to you. We all have to decide what brands we go with, who we enjoy, what we have history with. I can reiterate that my experience with these CF Express Type B cards from Pergear, these cards, plus the one that you saw before, plus some other cards, have been working for me just fine over the last 2 to 3 years. I would like to thank Pergear for sending me the CF Express Type A card. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. If you are a Sony user and any of those 6 Sony cameras that currently use CF Express Type A, do you use CF Express Type A or do you just stick to your SD cards? And if you do use it, will you be getting yourself some? Let's talk about this more in the comments below. It's been so good to see you, and if this is your first time here, I would love to see you again, so please do subscribe, please share, and please like. All right, bye for now.